What is up, everybody? It is your local Ottawa fan. I'm here to talk about the painful 5-2 loss against Toronto, but I did get some signatures. So we have got Gilmore, we have got McQuigg, Abstreiter, and Watts on this puck, on this jersey, on this hat. That's always fun. It's always nice to meet the players who are always super nice, especially after a tough loss like that. For them to still come out, still be in good spirits. Be there for the fans. It's really great. Honestly, I think that the fan base and the environment, and I know I'm biased. I know as an Ottawa fan, of course, I'm going to say that Ottawa has the best fans, but really, I honestly mean it. I saw someone on Twitter even saying that, in Ottawa, we were down 4-0 and we were still chanting, "Let's go, Ottawa." Because, yeah, we love our team. We love our players. And I get the feeling that they love us back, that, they're happy to come out to play for us day in, day out. They give it 100%. And the environment at an Ottawa game, it's really unmatched. This was yet another sellout crowd. 8,400. 8,400 people came to the game today. Ottawa's one of the most consistent fan bases. I saw somewhere, I think the game that's had the least amount of Ottawa fans, still it's better than the least amount of any other team. Like, Ottawa fans are crazy for PWHL Ottawa. And I've said it since day one of the season. Since before the season started, I've been saying it. The only reason why, maybe people look at the Sens and they're like, "Oh, the Sens don't have fans. The Sens don't have fans." Well, the two cities closest to us have been around for a century. If we started at the same level, at the same playing field, that wouldn't be the case. And I think today was a perfect example. We played Toronto. We got beat pretty badly by Toronto. And like I said, at a point it was 4-0 Toronto. If that was a Sens game, a lot of Sens fans would have left. You would have been hearing "Go Leafs, go" chants like crazy. Every time the few Toronto fans, and there was a decent enough amount, but I would say at least 3/4 of this sellout crowd, probably more. I would say even closer to 80% at least were Ottawa fans. It's no different than if it's any other team. You're always going to have away fans. There's always going to be fans of the other team. Look, if I'm in Toronto one day and Ottawa has a game against Toronto, I might go. I very well might, especially PWHL. Tickets are about the same price. I actually think they're a little cheaper in Toronto, so might have how the tables have turned. But yeah, I totally see the appeal, but it wasn't like when Montreal or Toronto come to an NHL game. Because, like I said, they've had fans who became fans back in the 80s. And then, even though they live in Ottawa, you've been a fan for a certain team for so long. At this game, anytime someone tried to cheer for Toronto, they immediately got drowned out. There wasn't even any pushback from other Toronto fans. It was drowned out in a game where we lost 5-2. In a game where Toronto, for the most part, kind of kicked us, up and down the rink completely. Just completely controlled the game. The first period, I would say we survived. We didn't go into the second and I was like, "Oh, well, you know what, we're only down by 1." We were only down by 1 going into the second, but the shots, they told a pretty clear story as to who was winning. And of course the 5 minutes in the second period ended our game. They got 3 quick goals in about 5 minutes, and that was it. After that, it was lights out. The rest of the game was really just window dressing. Ottawa did make a game out of it, thankfully. They were actually able to kind of get into it. There was about a 10-minute period in the third period. There was about 10 minutes where you're like, well, they could still do it. They're only down by 2, You still had this feeling, and then as the game went on, as that third period went on, you were like, okay, yeah, they aren't going to do it. But, there was at least some pushback from Ottawa. But even still, even during that 4-0, even those 5 minutes where Toronto just dominated us, even that first half of the game. The first half of the game was nothing but Toronto. Toronto controlled the play, controlled the game. This was the first time that Maschmeyer was pulled. You heard me right. Emrance Maschmeyer, who still had quite a few great saves, like even her worst game, and I'm gonna be honest, this was her worst game. Even her worst game wasn't completely awful, but you could tell, she was maybe a little shaken in the second period. She let in 2 quick ones. We're down 3-0. I like putting Abstreiter in. She had a great game, Abstreiter, by the way. 11 shots, only 1 went in, and I think it was the first shot, which I can chalk up to rust. I can chalk up to, look, it's the first time you're playing in a very long time, on this stage, on this level, and it's going to be a little bit, you're already down 3-0, I get it, you can't be perfect, and after that goal, she was perfect. She went 10 for 10 after that, to the point, and I'm going to sound crazy, I know, but to the point that I'd actually like to see her start some games. Not all the games. I still think Maschmeyer is our number one. I still think she's elite. But on days where maybe Maschmeyer isn't feeling 100% physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, on days where, look, you play on a Saturday and then you've got a game on like a Monday or a Tuesday, it's a short rest period. I know that, typically goaltenders, oh yeah, you've had 2 days rest, it's fine, but the PWHL has a different schedule. Maybe Maschmeyer's feeling hot, you keep her in net, fine. I still think she's your number one, she's your starter, trust what she says. But I now have a lot more faith of, like, you know what, we've got a good tandem. If Maschmeyer, for whatever reason, doesn't feel 1000% comfortable starting, put an Abstreiter. She played good, she played great. I really have to hand it to her. She kept the game from getting more out of hand than it already was. Yes, it was 4-0 and it was out of hand, but the only reason why it was a game at any point after the 10-minute mark of the second period is because Abstreiter played lights out, and she at least gave Ottawa the chance to have hope for a comeback. And we did eventually get that hope. So, I mean, to do a quick breakdown, like I said, Maschmeyer did have some good stuff. She had a great poke check early that, I don't know if it counted as a save or as a shot, but, she had good play. Don't want to just dismiss her. Maschmeyer still had a good game, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, Maschmeyer sucked. She didn't play to the level that we typically expect of Maschmeyer. We expect a very high level from Maschmeyer. We expect an elite caliber of play from her. She just was okay, and she let a few ones slide by her that she probably doesn't always let those in. And okay, you don't need to be perfect. Nobody's asking you to be perfect. Again, the team scored 2 goals. Like, Ottawa scored 2 goals total for the entire game. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I will continue to say it. Offense is the biggest issue of this team. Offense is the biggest issue. We have had one game where we've scored more than 3 goals on a net that wasn't empty. Yes, I think we've had a 4-goal, game because of an empty netter. But I think we've had one game, I think it was the 5-1 win against Toronto, where we just scored 5 goals. We didn't need help from an empty net, which, like, yes, it still counts. It's still an empty net goal, but at the end of the day, you need to get pucks past goaltenders to win games. You can't just tell your goaltender, hey, make 1,000,000 saves and we'll be fine. Eventually we'll score. So even still, 2 goals isn't great, but we did eventually get 2, and it took us a while to get there. Honestly, I think if we even just staggered our goals, if it was like 2-0 Toronto, 2-1 Ottawa, and then 2-1 Toronto, and then, it's 3-1 Toronto, 3-2 Toronto, 4-2 Toronto, I don't think that Maschmeyer gets pulled. I think it's because it just happened in such quick succession, and it was 1-0, the period ends, 2-0, 3-0. That we said, okay, we've got to throw our hands up and try to just do something to light a spark. And it did eventually light a spark. This game, in general, it was a very, very physical game. I was surprised that Toronto got away with everything. Not a single penalty was called on Toronto. 2 penalties were called on us, and both penalties were super soft. It was an interference and a holding call. I don't even know how it was an interference. We barely even touched him. Della Rivera barely even touched the other player. And the holding call was equally just mind-boggling. I guess there was kind of holding, but it was very light compared to what was going on. I mean, Skamura got into it multiple times, like big hits after the play had already moved somewhere else. Like the play was still alive. It's not like these were hits after the play. The play was still alive, and she was getting into it with a player who's nowhere near the puck. And this happened multiple times. So many big, dirty hits. I am surprised that the refs swallowed their whistles. I'm not even going to say, oh, the refs like rigged it, because they called 2 penalties on us. I will say, I don't know why those 2 penalties were called penalties, because we also got away with a whole bunch of stuff. We got away with a whole bunch. Toronto got away with a whole bunch. And then the softest calls possible get called. Like, I'm not going to say that the refs wanted Toronto to win, because I don't think they did. I don't know what was happening. Like, you lightly kind of maybe grab them a little bit or slightly get into their way. That's definitely a penalty. But you try to chop their face. Oh yeah, that's hockey. So I will say the refereeing was bad, but I'm not going to say that the refereeing cost us the game. It was bad on both sides. It affected both teams poorly. Yes, it's easy to say, well, Toronto didn't get a penalty called on them. But honestly, it would not have surprised me if Toronto just got a penalty on like a ghost tripping call, where their stick doesn't even touch us. The refereeing was wild. They swallowed their whistles. When we got our second penalty, it was early in the third period, and I thought, okay, so this is a sign of things to come, that the refs are going to calm things down and say, hey, we're not going to let that slide anymore. They let everything slide. And it was a very physical game. It started right from the first whistle. Right from the first whistle, it was very physical. It was very aggressive. And as a result, we barely had time to set up anything. We could not set up much in Toronto's end. We got a few chances, but we didn't have sustained momentum really at all in the first period. Maybe there was a moment here or two for a minute. But Toronto, it really felt like they were able to give us sustained pressure, that they were able to heap on the pressure. And on that questionable interference call, they do ultimately score a goal and puts us down 1-0. I mean, it's bound to happen, right? You can't go on a penalty in a tie game. It's never a good idea. Again, I don't really think it should have been a penalty, and that's just the way the game goes sometimes. The shot, it wasn't the hardest shot, but it wasn't the easiest shot to save either. I wouldn't have saved it. That's all I'll say. I would not have saved that. It was, it's a power play. They pass the puck around a whole bunch and get you out of position. That's the benefit of having an extra player on the ice. And so we go down 1-0. There was a good pushback at the end of the first period. After the goal. At the ensuing play, Ottawa had some pressure, some actual sustained pressure. And in classic Ottawa fashion, they don't score. And the period actually ends with Toronto having a really, really, really good, what I felt was the momentum shifting shift. Because instead of us keeping the pressure on for the rest of the period, Toronto, they really heaped it on us. Maschmeyer made a few big saves right in the last, I'd say, 2 minutes of the period. We were lucky to go into the second only down by 1. Mind you, our luck immediately ran out because, again, we had a brief rush, just like in the first period, a brief rush for not even a minute to start the period, and then all Toronto had the next almost 2.5 minutes just in our end. And again, it pays off. And now we're in a 2-goal hole early in the second period. And you blink and it's a 3-goal hole. It was another quick goal. Toronto just thoroughly outplaying us. And after 3-0, like I said, Maschmeyer pulled. And immediately Abstreiter makes it 4-0. It's not her fault, again. But that's got to be just not only is it a mood killer for the team, but for her And that's the other thing I want to say. You go into the game, you immediately give up a goal. Immediately. Like, the starters pulled, you go in, immediately give up a goal. To have the mental capacity to just say, I'm moving past it, and to then bat 1,000. Yeah, you let in a goal, but then immediately afterwards you said, that's it, no more, I'm a wall. And she was. After that moment, she was great. She didn't let a single goal in. So I really have to hand it to her. That's a high pressure situation. And the pressure did get heated up. We were really pissed when it was 4-0. Every single play, every hit, you could feel there was a level of viciousness to it. Again, it's starting to feel like, damn, do these teams hate each other? Which is great. I do actually like the end of the game handshake. I think that actually helps kind of calm some of the tempers, because it means we can let tempers flare in the game. At the end of it, we're all friends. We all want this league to succeed. Outside of during the game, I'm very happy Toronto has a team. And I think that it is a wonderful thing. I love the city of Toronto, like, just separate from sports, just as a person, as a Canadian, as an Ottawan. They're like a sister city. And I'm so, well, okay, our sister city's got no, but they're at least a cousin. They're at least a cousin city. Toronto's a great city. And if you've never been and you're from Ottawa, I cannot recommend it enough. Go visit Toronto at some point. You will not regret it. Beautiful city, wonderful time, so much to see. Go to a Raptors game, go to a Blue Jays game. Avoid the Leafs, but go to a Raptors game, go to a Blue Jays game, go to the CN Tower. There's so many fun things to do in Toronto. Great city. Love it. The people there are wonderful. And I'm so happy that they have a PWHL team that they can rally around. But when that puck drops for the next 60 minutes, I don't like Toronto. I really don't. I actually felt the kind of hate that I have towards the Leafs. I just feel that towards PWHL Toronto. And that's great. That's what we need. That's how we get rivalries, where it's not just like, oh, I don't care who wins. And I know right now, there are a lot of people who just want to see good hockey, who just want to see whoever deserves it wins. A lot of people who don't have a team yet. And I think that's good. But I think also, as the season goes on, and as the seasons go on, we're going to start seeing people being like, no, I hate Toronto. I really hope that Toronto doesn't get anything. I hope that they lose this year, next year, and every year afterwards. And we're going to see Toronto fans say the exact same thing about Ottawa. And I think that's good. I think, to a certain degree, that's healthy. Don't go beat somebody up because they have a Toronto jersey on. At the end of the day, we're supporting the same league. We're supporting the same players. Today, damn, I was mad at Sarah Nurse. She played a really good game against us. She also said we had A-plus fans. And that at the drop of a hat, if I could get Sarah Nurse onto Ottawa, I'd be like, yeah, move the moon, the mountains, whatever you have to. Get her on this team. That's the beauty of sports. There are so many great players and fans. And even though during the game, there's going to be anger and vitriol, after the game, we're all on the same team. We're all cheering for the same league. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen Sens and Leaf fans going at it, and then somebody says, try a real sport like the NBA. And then immediately the Sens and Leaf fans are like, oh, you did not just say that. You did not just say that. Not on my, Twitter thread. Even though, in one context, can't stand each other. And in the 60 minutes that Toronto was playing, I did not like them. I did not like them one bit. I think that's so good. And you could tell the players felt the same way. It was physical. It was rough. It was mean. There were even a few hits that, like, Ottawa was landing that I was like, damn, is that allowed? Like, hey, ref, you're going to call it? And the physicality ultimately did lead to a goal. And Skamura with the assist. I told you she was playing aggressive. She was getting into it. She gets the assist. I love to see it. And Gabby Hughes with the goal. Gabby Hughes is very quickly becoming one of my favorite players. She is always there for some of the clutch moments, some of the big goals. if this game had gone differently, this could have been, oh, this was the goal that sparked it. This is the goal that started things. And it still is the goal that sparked it. It sparked the second half of the game, which was all Ottawa. Ottawa applied pressure. Lots of good chances. Emily Clark had this great chance. We had a few breakaway chances. We just didn't score, which is typical of Ottawa. Again, we are not an offensively gifted team. Not to say that we don't have offensively powerful players. We do. But we aren't going to win a game or a series or a championship on the basis of our offensive play. It'll be off of our defensive play and our goaltending. You know, defense is what's going to win us a championship if we win a championship. You know, if we make the playoffs this year, if we win a series this year, if we win it all this year, it will be on the backs of our defenders, of our goaltenders, not on the backs of our forwards. It's not to say that our forwards are bad. They aren't. They just aren't going to light you up for 6 or 7 goals in a game. They aren't. And other teams have that ability. And we're a team that's built on tempering that. You know, oh, you can score 6 goals in a game. We're going to make that 2. We're going to make that 2 goals in a game. And hopefully that'll get in your head and you'll let a few more slip by. And today, yeah, we didn't show up there. And we allowed 4 goals really early. And, you know, our comeback was too little too late. And, I mean, the third period, too. We had a lot of late chances going into the third, but we go into the third down 3. The third period, it felt a bit more like Toronto had some control. They were able to temper things down a lot. Even at the start of the period, it looked like they were really succeeding, but then Ottawa strikes Ashton Bell with her first of the season. Ashton Bell has been great. I mean, last game, she made the save that won the game. Open net, she makes a huge block, and then Harmon clears it. And that was the nail in New York's coffin. So great play, and to see her finally rewarded with a goal. So deserved. Such a great player. And this is where you're like, okay, Ottawa's starting to get some momentum. They kept the pressure up in the second period. They just scored early in the third period. After that other penalty that I mentioned, we killed it off that time. We had, like I said, a breakaway. It was a jailbreak breakaway. It got saved, but nonetheless, really, really, really good way to stay with it. And then the rest of the period happened. And it's not that we play bad. It's that we just didn't have that constantly firing. We ended up actually getting to the same amount of shots, but Toronto just kind of slowed the game down and was able to start to eat up clock. And then, 15 minutes down by 2, turned to 10, down by 2, turned to 5, down by 2. And like I said, we had chances. They had chances. Toronto had a spinorama chance on it wasn't a breakaway, but it was a 1-on-1. And the Abstreiter comes up big. Huge play by the goaltender. Another chance that Toronto had, it flicks up and Abstreiter tries to bat it away and doesn't. And it's rolling right to the net. And Abstreiter just gets down and kind of bats it away and covers it. Again, she played great. And we had also a few good chances, but ultimately our best chance to get back in the game was the second period. After we scored, we still stayed aggressive. We stayed on them. And that last bit of the second period, I think if we scored once to make it 4-2 going into the third, and then we immediately score, I think that could have maybe changed the script of the game of oh man, now Toronto's the team that's buckling. Now they would be discussing, oh man, do we change goaltenders? You just let in 3 quick ones. I don't know. Don't let Ottawa get back into it. Take a timeout. Do something. Ultimately, we weren't able to capitalize on some key chances. We weren't able to pull it out. Toronto played a good game. They're hot right now. And like I said, we had to know going into this game that Toronto's been playing very good hockey as of late. And when the first 2 times we saw them, they weren't. And, yet again, we can't string 2 wins together. Yet again, we still somehow win it because despite this, Boston lost. Yes, we have 1 less game play or 1 more game played than New York. And if New York wins, they would go ahead of Boston. And they are now ahead of us due to the fact that they have less games played. But even if they do win, if we win, we can go ahead of Boston and be tied in points with New York, and New York just has a game in hand. If New York loses and we win, We are right back in it. So it's not over. Like, let's not act like it's over. But we're facing Minnesota, a team we haven't beat. With this loss, every team has beat us. Every single team in the PWHL can say at some point they've beaten Ottawa. Ottawa can't say that. There are 2 teams who are yet to beat. Minnesota's one of them. So we gotta, if we can take it, we gotta dish it. We gotta be able to say, hey, look, doesn't matter how good Minnesota is doing, doesn't matter how bad Minnesota's doing, doesn't matter what they're doing. It's not about them, it's about us. They've beat us 3 times. Like, are you gonna stand for that? Really? Like I don't think our players like that Minnesota keeps beating us. Don't stand for it. This is your opportunity to not only keep yourself really alive in the playoff race, but also to make a statement that no, we aren't going to be bulldozed by certain teams. That this is a league with a lot of parity. Minnesota got their 3 wins against us. That's it. Like, they got their 3. Now it's our turn to get our wins against them. Because Toronto got their turn. They beat us. We had a chance to seal up the Battle of Ontario. We played them 5 times. If we won the first 3, that would have been it. Didn't happen. And I do think that this might be one of the biggest fan rivalries. I don't think maybe player-wise, but I noticed, a few Toronto fans here, quite a few Leaf jerseys and a few Toronto jerseys, quite a few. Not like going to a Sens versus Leafs game in Ottawa. That's a different beast. It was still overwhelmingly Ottawa. But also, like, I saw the Toronto games in Toronto. There's a good contingent of Ottawa fans there. I would say about the same amount of Ottawa fans go to Toronto games as Toronto fans go to Ottawa games. I could see these 2 fan bases clashing, especially considering we've seen a lot of away wins. I think Ottawa is the only team to have had the home team win in the Battle of Ontario. They are the only one. So I could see, that really boiling over fan-wise. Again, really good that we have this kind of rivalry. And I think it's only gonna heat up. We're still in it, but that start really killed us. We need offense. And when our goaltending doesn't show up like it normally does. Again, I don't want to say that Maschmeyer was terrible. He's just had an off game. But we aren't a team that can score 5 or 6 goals in a game. If our goaltender has an off game, that's it. Like, you can close the book on that one. If we let in 4 goals, that's it. We've never won a game. Never. Where we let in 4. Ever. So, it is what it is. But like I said, it's still a fun time. I met some other, Ottawa personalities from online Ottawa personalities. The community we have and the fan base that we have and the team that we have is great. And I still walked out having had a fun time. Would it have been more fun if we won? 100%. Again, you just got to reset. Next game, I really feel like, especially with this team where, it's rare that we string 2 wins together, but we strung 5 losses together. We string multiple losses together. We really need to have a mentality of each game is its own separate thing. Don't think of what came before. Don't think of the other games, the other losses, or the other wins. Just, there's today. There's this game. We're still in it. I mean, I can't be too mad. We're still alive. We're still very much alive, very much in the race. And you know what? Maschmeyer isn't going to be perfect. She's allowed to have a bad game here or there. This was today. We got to see Abstreiter in action. She looked good. And hopefully, moving forward, we'll be able to really tell who's ready to start, who's up to the challenge, who's up to the task. And hopefully we are going to start getting more offense. That's honestly the biggest thing. If we got even 1 goal in that first period, if we were down 4-1 and then we score, I really think being down 4-0, it's just such a back-breaking score that, like, you're done. Not just in terms of that's a lot of goals you need to make up, but momentum-wise, like, even if you get 2 goals like we did, how much does it really change the momentum? You're still down by 2. You just scored 2 and you're only halfway there. If you're down by 3, and you score 2. Now all of a sudden you're at the doorstep. Didn't play our best game. I think this was by far the worst game that we've played. I really do. I still think the second half of the game was pretty good for Ottawa. I also think by the second half of the game, it was over. It was 4-0. It was 4-0, like, immediately. Oh, sure, the second half was good, but, like, did you see the score? And Toronto did a really good job of, neutralizing us in the third period. So it's not like they were trying to light us up. They get an empty netter to make it 5-2, but at the end of the day, 5-2, 6-2, 7-2, it's 4-0. That's all you needed to know. Not every game's going to be a winner. I still have faith in the team, and you really just got to move on to the next one. You got to get a win. Again, recently it's not been terrible. Win against Boston, loss against Boston, loss against Montreal, win against New York, loss against Toronto. Okay, get another win. We had that 5-game losing streak, but since then we've almost been 500. Get back to 500, and we can get back in. We can resuscitate this season. Just got to keep with it. I don't really know what else there is to say. And like I said, even when it was down 4-0, we were saying this. And I'll always be saying it because I'll always be a fan. Go, Ottawa, go.